So welcome everyone. We have a big group here today. And should we start now or should we wait 1 minute?
I think we can start.
Okay.
9 o'clock.
Okay. We do have a lot to cover. So thank you for virtually attending the third installment of the Industry Talks. The topic is the creative fight back, how creative-centric industries will rise above the pandemic. We have a dynamic and diverse group of professionals who I want to introduce as quickly as possible because we have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. They all have websites where you can learn more about their great work and their companies. First, we have Narcisa Pheres, founder of the Pheres jewelry brand in Hong Kong and Tokyo. She's co-founder of the GR8 Institute, and she is also the founder of Industry Talks, this series of talks that we've been having. Colleen Caslin, CEO of Jessica McCormack London, a diamond jewelry brand. Laura Mortensen, president at Sharp Think, New York, a communications agency. Jim Kloiber, founding partner of Battalion, New York, a communications agency. I know both of these agencies, they do a lot more than communications. Teruko Fujii, a Perrotin art gallery in Tokyo, and Isabella Traglio, deputy general manager of the Italian jewelry brand Vhernier in Valencia, Italy. And we are still waiting on Lydia, Courteille, and Stephen Lagos. But thank you all for being here.
Hi, Lydia. Hi, Stephen. They just joined us.
Joined us?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Hi.
Lydia Courteille, high jewelry artist, Paris, and Stephen Lagos, chairman and creative director of Lagos, a luxury jewelry brand in Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
There he is.
Or afternoon.
Or evening.
Good evening.
That's right. We cover all the time zones here. Is Lydia here as well?
Yes,
I'm here.
Okay, hi Lydia. I think this first question might pertain to you first, and then the others.
Okay.
There you are. How do you keep the design and creative spark alive in times of uncertainty?
During the confinement, it was very difficult for me to create, because creation is dynamic. And if I'm not close to my customer, if I'm not in my shop, I cannot continue to go ahead to new design. But since I came back to my shop, now it's okay. I'm very busy and I'm very happy to make new things, but
Yes.
it's a little bit slow, more
Okay.
slow.
Narcisa, the same question to you.
Well, we didn't really have a close down in Hong Kong. So, and again, for me, creating new pieces of jewelry, the same thing with Lydia, it's very much connected with meeting people, seeing how they feel. I've been working on a couple of pieces because the local market already moved here for quite a while. But making new collections, definitely I'm holding on to that for the time being.
Okay, Isabella, would you like to take this question on?
Yeah, please. First of all, hi everybody, and it's a beautiful opportunity to talk about our industry. So, thank you so much for the great opportunity. About your question, I think the creative spark is still very much alive. I think because women and men, we will never give up about jewelry, because jewelry is, and it always have been, a sign of distinction, an element of style. So people need beauty around them. So I think the current emergency will not change the perception of the jewel and its symbolic power. So I believe the spark is alive. I mean, it's absolutely this is an element that maintains the spark alive. And for us, I mean, in Italy, we have been the first country after China for COVID, for this pandemic situation. We had a lot of time in lockdown, and I had the opportunity in lockdown to work more than usual with my design team because we had time. So we take the opportunity.
Okay, great. Teri, you work with our clients. What have they been telling you?
Okay, so some quotes. We're solitary people anyway. Actually, many of our artists say, and we paint ourselves by ourselves, so we're not really meeting a lot of people in our studio. So life as usual is one thing that many of them have said. And another thing that they have said is the unexpected time off to spend with their loved ones. And in a way that, they can concentrate on, producing their artworks and also being able to pay attention to their close, surroundings, like noticing a painting in their house, which normally because of the busy schedules of the artists with so many art fairs that were going on, together with the gallery shows. So many says that it's a great time for actually producing work. So interesting, it's solitary.
Are some of your clients producing work related to the COVID crisis?
Not the artists that you're representing. Well, we don't know yet in a way because new pieces may reflect because normally that they would artists would absorb what's happening around them because it's like they produce, it will reflect life as it is in their artworks, but it comes after. Apart from it's not our galleries, the artists, but then many, I think, particularly like where it started, earlier in Wuhan, in Hong Kong, many of the artists, whether it be the political message, whether it be the fear of virus, I think, they have, they directly translated into the artworks.
Okay, great. The next question is, have design preferences shifted in the past 4 months? And will trend forecasts still have importance at this current time? Let's see, Stephen?
Yeah, I think that, it's a super interesting time. I don't think that any of us have ever in our lifetimes had 8 weeks to ourselves. And it's given us an opportunity to reflect in a way that's hard to do when everything's running at such a high pace. I think that we're going to see a real burst of creativity. I think it's going to be more about the designers kind of really expressing themselves as opposed to the trends driving what's happening. And then the trends will be born out of that creativity. But I think that all of us, I know that I've always been so busy with so many things, and this has sort of been a forced checkout for 8 weeks, 10 weeks. And, it's interesting because my mind's been able to wander to places that it hasn't ever been afforded the luxury to do. Forward to getting back to work though. I'm looking for everything to get rolling again.
Yeah, I think we all are. Although some of us are busier than ever. Colleen.
Yes.
What Jessica McCormack? Are they? Are they reacting to this situation? Are trends? It's not really trend jewelry, but is there a change in how Jessica McCormack and the designers are looking at developing pieces?
I think one thing that Jessica has always been at the forefront is about curation of your collection, and working with the client in terms of realizing, repurposing their designs, and that has continued straight through. A bespoke business is about 40% of our total business. I think what we find is, look, we've had to adapt in this changing environment. I think if you look at it, jewelry is emotional, it's sentimental, there's an attachment. The way we operate, we used to do face-to-face, and now we have to do it in various forms, whether it's a Zoom call with a client, et cetera. But with the design team, I think they've had this gift of time. And I think I like to take the threat and then look at the opportunity. So I'm going to pivot over to what that opportunity is. And in terms of, what we probably are going to see is, everything in the supply chain design. I think in the future, what you'll see is a more curation. People want individualistic pieces. I think there's going to be a big continuation. The fact that people have been, cleaning out their closets and their wardrobes and their jewelry boxes, there's going to be a big movement in terms of repurposing pieces and breathing new life into it. So I see that in a sense.
Okay.
In terms of the creative aspect, I think the newness imperative is crucial. I think you have to innovate or fade. And our team has been really, really ambitiously coming up with designs for the next 2 years already. I think it's the gift of time that they can really forward because we do so much bespoke. So we've been really focusing on the new collections and moving forward. And there's some newness that we're generating and introducing this year, even with the disruption of supply chain.
Narcisa might have some opinions on this, I think.
The new trends, well, things are changing very fast and you're very right. People are looking at what they are having and it's unbelievable. Within few weeks, like a month, people totally turn around. They taste everything they love and they wanted, what is they believe they wanted before, now totally changed. I do realize that a lot of the clients we had, especially now in Hong Kong, they are coming with their very big pieces and they ask us to redesign them. So definitely this is happening already. We're seeing it. So you're very right about it. Now, one interesting thing I also see is a lot of people are looking at diamonds as investments recently. So we have a huge request for single stones, big ones, not extremely big ones, but somehow between like 2 to let's say 5 carats. They are moving very fast on the market right now. And people are getting back to the basics. They want to have value. When they buy something now, it's not so much about just how it looks and what the name of the brand is, but it's also about what is the value of what I'm buying, the center stone, and is it something I can pass into the next generation? This kind of family love, tradition, even more became important at this point in their life. And they start going back to basics more and more. Classic designs. They want something that they can wear. They're not interested in trends anymore. I don't want to wear anymore whatever was famous for the season. They want to have something that they can just keep and wear it for decades and passing on to their kids.
Okay, great. What new designs do you think will resonate with consumers after the pandemic? Who can I ask? Stephen.
I agree. I agree that I think it's really about classic right now. I think people want to feel safe, and I think they want to have safe things that they can wear and they can really enjoy. I think people are really reassessing their place. I think that things we took for granted are suddenly complete luxury, and so I think that the trend is going to be to a little bit more classic styling, little things that people can really wear and enjoy for a long time. A little less trendy.
Okay, great. Now Lagos and Vhernier have iconic designs. So for Vhernier, how do you create new designs based on your iconic pieces that you've created for the past, I don't know, 20, 30 years?
Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah.
Actually, Vhernier has a very strong identity. So the DNA of Vhernier, you can see DNA of Vhernier in all his lines, even if the lines are very different from each others. And I believe the time now require more understatement, but also newness. So as somebody said before, people are looking for new things, but it's not too much. It's not too much because it has to be appropriate for the time, And so I think the word is appropriateness and the understatement for the moment. It has to be relevant. Jewel has to be relevant for this scenario. And yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. This is for the communications professionals here. I haven't forgotten about you. How can the creative industries like jewelry and fashion reinvent themselves to survive COVID-19?
Ah,
Jim and I'm sure Laura have lot of clients in a lot of different areas of the a lot of different categories, luxury categories. So, Jim, would you like to start?
Sure. I don't know that it's so much about reinventing, yourself. I think consumers are looking for brands that are true to themselves, that stand for something. So I think maybe it's more about strengthening your connection with consumers during this time.
Okay, Laura, would you like to take on this question? I mean, how are you advising your clients right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that was a good point about, being true to yourself and about finding your community. I think one of the things that we're talking to clients a lot about now is the idea of providing value and, brand before product, and brands have the ability to provide value in so many different ways, and especially in this category. And I think we're seeing that across the board. There's some brands that are in the fashion space that are pivoting and making masks and, really contributing to their local communities or contributing to the cause in a very direct way. I think we're also seeing clients who have the ability to contribute through escapism and through giving people a relief. We we work with the glass artist Chihuly, and his installations are outdoors and monumental and in places that are largely closed right now.
Let's see, Teri,
Yes.
do you see crossover between high jewelry and art? I know I attend some art fairs where jewelers exhibit, TAFA for one.
I think, particularly antiques, they as with fine art, with the contemporary art, that, we refer back to history, or to have, to look for a context in the history. So there's similarity in that regard. But at the same time, when you think about, our collectors, I think, we are talking to the common, the audience. Therefore, I personally do not see why not that there is a marriage, and to this to this end, and Narcisa and I had the opportunity actually to have this collaboration in a gallery in Tokyo as well.
Lydia, your work is certainly considered art. Um, would you,
Yeah.
would you exhibit? Do you exhibit in museums? Do you exhibit at art shows?
Yes, many times, many times.
Many
In
times?
Paris, in the Museum of Art Moderne, in Milan, at I would call in a famous gallery museum. I don't forgot the name. And I have one of my piece is actually at a permanent collection au Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris. And for me, I don't consider you have two ways to consider the jewelry. Or effective, you can have just one stone and nothing around to wear to have like a value that you can see. And the other one is to make a piece of jewelry unique and work very hard on the design. And for me, it's a mistake to think that we cannot wear every day. You are able to wear a piece of art on your finger every day. And this is my concept. I want to make only one of a kind, and I want my client unique, like haute couture.
Very good.
You see me?
Excuse
You
me?
see me? You
I
can
see,
see
yes.
me because sometimes it's cut.
Yeah, it goes
You
back and
hear
forth.
me?
I can see you and I
And
can hear you right now.
And actually, I'm working on a collection where I put inside antiques artifacts like Sumerian seals and antique intaglio. And to make the pieces so unique, you can wear a ring with a 4,000 years intaglio on your finger. this is a different way. This is something different. And for me, this is close the heart.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
You will
good.
see my next collection.
Oh,
You
good.
should- Yeah.
I'm sure Jessica will show me it. Let's see. Sharp thing. Laura, you have some art clients. I don't. Sharp think. Laura, are you there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely see that interaction, and I see, we see it, as you mentioned, at TAFE and at the fairs, where there's such a confluence between the art world and the jewelry world. And we see it in, I think, the work that we do for clients too, where even in terms of the people who are commenting on these worlds often intersect. We're working with influencers who cross over between jewelry and art to jewelry. And I think each bringing their own perspective to the other field lends a lot of depth to the coverage and interest to the coverage. And, we see that crossover be really effective for our clients as well when we can introduce a jewelry influencer to an art client, or, vice versa.
Okay, great. Let's see, what's next? How important will customization and one-of-a-kind become? Will customers be part of the creative process? I think for some of these jewelers, customers are already part of the creative process. Lydia, do you collaborate with customers? Or do you
yes,
just
of
create
course.
collection? Yeah?
Yes, and more and more when I put on the market new pieces, I try to think about somebody around me or in my customer able to wear. Like this, it's more easier because in the past I always make things in my taste, but never thinking about the sale. I know it's not good, but now I try to be more professional about the finality to find the final customer. And sometimes now, when I know the taste of my customer, of course, and when I do something, I try to think about somebody. And sometimes also I make things on orders, special orders, and it's a collaboration, of course.
Okay. So you do commissions?
Yeah.
Basically, yes. Okay. Narcisa, you do commissions. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And as how much of that how much of your business is commissions? Almost all of it, isn't it?
Sorry, me or Lydia?
You, Narcisa.
Me. Yeah. Actually, the biggest part of it is commission work.
And Colleen, commissions are an important part of the
Absolutely. Jessica is the facilitator for clients, to create the bespoke business. And that's a big part of our business, whether or not they come with signed pieces and they have it repurposed, or to create a brand new piece. I think it is that search for uniqueness. I think it is, people are going away. It's a more edited and more curated approach in terms of their jewelry. I think it's about wearability. They have pieces that have been sitting in their vaults, they haven't worn. It might be a blue diamond and it's converted in a piece that's worn every day. So I think, pivoting on that point of, the wearability is something that's very much resonates with the clients now.
Okay, great. Anyone else want to answer that question?
Just want to say that co-creation is very engaging. Some customers really appreciate to be part of the creative process.
Correct.
So customers are really craving to be part of the creativity part. We saw how important it is when having our experience with our collection, one of a kind, with flowers, about gems, very precious stones. Our clients usually bring us the gems from the family, like a ring from grandmother, and they just realize that the ring can have, a new life. In 2020, maybe the ring has 100 years, I don't know, and they're just amazed by create the new ring from the grandmother using the same gem. This is something very important for customers.
Okay, good.
And
Anthony, if I could just touch on one thing, I think with us, our townhouse, we have our own workshop and we have a design studio. And I think very much what Isabella said, it's about that client journey, getting to know the design team, going to the workshop, knowing who's touching the piece. I think that is a very personal, jewelry is emotional, and I think that connectivity with the client is key and important.
The thing about the jewelry industry is everyone here has a totally different model of designing and a business model, and it works for them.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes, and I want to say something.
Yes, sure.
Many people some of my customers who bought in the past big rings with beautiful big diamonds and large ruby or sapphire are coming now to me to make a new to redo something more closer art, not only a stone, also something with a storytelling, and it's very important to let the people dream around the stories. I love that in my shop, in my business.
So, Stephen, your model again is different than some of the others. I mean, how do you listen to clients?
Well, we're very involved with our clients. Jewelry is an interesting art form because it's so interactive. So many of the other fine arts, you buy a piece and it more or less it's displayed, where jewelry is part of a person's life. It's how they select it, what they choose to wear it with. We make a lot of pieces that are set up for layering, and so a customer can really kind of put together their own look, selecting from our collections, or adding to jewelry they already have. It could be pieces that are 100 years old, or something more contemporary, or something from one of the other artists here. And it's kind of about the way that they put it together. So we're always listening to our customers, studying sort of the way that they like to wear things, and always inspired by, I think that's probably one of our greatest sources of inspiration.
That's good. And this continues on with this customization. Will designers continue to work to develop ideas and concepts with customers, or they impose their own concepts and collections? I think it depends on the brand, and I think certainly most of the people here are able to do both. Narcisa, you're producing, as well as your one-of-a-kind pieces, you're producing a contemporary design collection to be sold, publicly.
Yes, we
So how is
actually
it different?
sold. Well, whatever it's under Narcisa Pheres brand, that's one of a kind, and it's mostly commission pieces. Everything else that falls under Pheres, they are ready-to-wear collections. Are pretty much, we decide the concept, we create a full collection, and we put it on the market. Now we are moving more and more into unisex jewelry as well, gender fluidity. So it's definitely an interesting time right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, Colleen, are you looking at new ways of working with customers, or is this the model that you're using and it works and at one point of sale, correct?
Right. We have one door. We're brick and mortar predominantly. We have in the townhouse in Mayfair in London, opposite the Connaught. We also have a private contemporary art collection of one of our shareholders, not for sale, but it is extraordinary. And if anybody's in London, please come and visit us. And that's where we house the jewelry. And I think, just in terms of, I just want to touch on a few where, in terms of the business too, I think, to be really effectively communicating, I think is really important with your clients, and through that storytelling and narrative, which is what Jessica does so well. And forging that sense of community. I think we have never really chased the volume and the big distribution, because I think it's been more of a healthy organic growth. I mean, we had quadrupled the business in 2 years. And the reason being because it's about that community and really, really making sure that you're looking through the lens of the client and what the client needs.
Lydia?
Yes, I want to tell you something. For me, one of a kind is not new. It's my signature. Since 20 years, my things are one of a kind, and I cannot imagine jewelry but one of a kind. I don't know why. Maybe because I come from the antique market, but really something for just one people. The absolute luxe.
So the thing about contemporary jewelry art is fairly new concept, I think.
Yeah.
It started with, I guess the biggest person who started, I don't want to say he started it, but he popularized it. It was Jar. And since then, it has grown,
Yeah.
a lot.
Oh,
Who do you look at for
what
influences? Do you look at other people for influences, Lydia?
do you look at?
Other people,
Excuse
other jewelers, other high jewelry artists, other
No, not
other
really.
artists?
In my gallery, I have only me. And it's horrible, but I
Yeah.
remember Karl Lagerfeld said, nobody interests me but me. No, it's a joke. It's just a joke. No, but my gallery is so small that I cannot, and I have so many pieces in stock that I cannot have anyone else in my gallery. I think it was your question, no? I understand well? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, if understand that if you take any inspiration from other artists.
Oh, no. Of course, for the painting, sometimes I did a collection, Hommage au Surréalisme. I took inspiration from Dali and Jérôme Bosch. And of course, I take inspiration of artists. But I try to be the most unique I can in my concept of jewelry. I don't like to take inspiration of the other one. It could happen, but it's not. It's not my way. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Anyone else want to tackle this? Jim, you have one high jewelry client.
Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, I actually find this interesting because I've worked with a range of brands over my career, and I think, it really depends on who your customer is. And I mean, who you are as a designer and who your customer is. I think there's something to be said for one-of-a-kind pieces. There's also something to be said for a Cartier love bracelet, and it really comes down to what the customer is looking for and how they want to feel and what they respond to. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I mean, I hugely admire what Lydia does. I think it is the closest thing you can have to art when it comes to jewelry. But it's, that's a very unique, I think, customer that has a level of sophistication and confidence, if you will, and understanding to be able to wear jewelry on that level. Whereas I think, sometimes a woman or a man just, they just want to feel good. They just want to feel comfortable. And they've got a favorite piece that they wear every day, and it's part of their wardrobe. So I think it really, that's the wonderful thing about jewelry, is that it can be so many things to so many different people. And it's just great to see a range of designs out there and to see people doing new and interesting things every year. Just when you think you've seen everything, someone comes out with another incredible design or another iconic piece that moves the industry forward.
Yes, that is so true. And the other thing is that unlike almost every other luxury industry, jewelry industry is still run primarily by independents. So this creativity is everywhere. And
Yeah, I think that that's a real important thing. I think that the jewelry business is one where you can be a very small company and really have a lot of influence. And I think one of the things that's happening right now, a lot of the bigger companies are probably struggling with what's going on a lot more. And we're going to see a real emergence of a lot of new talent, I think, where there's going to be demand and people, you know, unfortunately with the situation, people are going to fall to the wayside. But it's the kind of business that you don't really need a huge capital investment to set up a little production. And the business can really just be driven by pure creativity. So it's an interesting business that way.
Yes, and that's how you started.
That's certainly how I started. You know, we've become much more of a brand play though. So we really don't do one-of-a-kind pieces. We have a signature look and style. We create collections around that style. And, but you know, they're broad. So we have maybe over 1,000 different pieces in our collection right now. And the customer is able to really come and personalize it. And that's really where the bespoke part comes in, where we have people working with our clients and really working to create their own looks from within our collections.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, it's an interesting business. There's always something. There's certainly always something to write about on every level. I mean, just acquiring materials is something unique, I think, to any other business. Well, we see a slowing in the current design cycle and how designers adapt to change. This has to do with I think with the larger companies primarily, who have to who depend on deliveries, who depend on manufacturing processes like you, Stephen. You manufacture abroad. They have to be brought over to US and they get distributed throughout the country.
But, you know, you talked about procurement, Anthony. I think that that's one of the biggest challenges we all have, right? So we're all used to going to trade shows. We're used to going to events where we're able to actually go and select. It's, you know, the jewelry business, every stone is unique. And to go match 20 stones, you can't really do that over the internet, or you can't rely on people just to be able to do that work for you. I think a huge part of what we all do is the procurement of the materials we're using. And, you know, we really relied on going to a lot of shows, Tucson, the Hong Kong show, all the different global shows, where we were able to see a lot of merchandise and really kind of select what really fit what we were working with. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges right now is where do we get to see the assortments and really be able to kind of cull through a lot of different goods to select what's going to be appropriate for what we're doing. So that's something we're struggling with a little bit.
And we're going to be shut out of the Hong Kong show, it looks like, with the new travel restrictions, which will last until after the show, the last day of the show, I believe. So,
oh, is that when the travel restrictions are lifted?
September 18th, and I think the shows actually end on the 19th. So for the materials portion, it will be totally missed.
And will the quarantine go out of effect after the 18th?
Well, I think it's quarantine now, right, Narcisa? If you fly in, it's 14 days.
No, except for president, nobody can enter Hong Kong at this point. And I think till September 18th, nobody can enter. Probably the nearest one is going to be November show.
So that's going to be a huge blow for the industry, not being able to
And then again, you have a problem because there are two shows at the same time.
Right. That's in November.
Yes.
Yes. But the September show is so important to high jewelers and so important to manufacturers because that's where they get their materials. And everybody's there. So it's
But
really
we have stock, no? Mark Anthony.
Yes.
We have stock. We have stone stock, and
Sure.
The fact we begin the collection at least 1 year before
Mm-hmm.
don't affect actually really the rhythm of the collection. But I think maybe next year it would be not as good. Actually, for me, I have no trouble, not too much, a little bit, but not too much.
You don't go to trade
Because,
shows.
yeah, because we are that in advance. We are in advance, you know. But
So
next year maybe.
you deal with
Hmm?
dealers. You deal with stone
Yeah.
dealers. Yes.
I have a stock. I need nothing, to say the truth. I have a big stock of stones.
Okay. 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 As far as shipping as well, I mean things have slowed down to a stop.
Yes, it's slow. Shipping are slow because you have not enough flight. For
Right.
example, between America and France, you have to wait 1 week. It's just one flight a week, or you know. This is because the flight, but it's not because the material for me.
Okay.
I don't know about
Colleen.
price. Like
Yeah.
last week, I was bidding on a few auctions in Antwerp and Israel on stones, and I got it in 2 days. Everything
Really?
was there was absolutely no interruption whatsoever in shipping.
Because I know for a story I wrote for Phillips auction house was saying he was saying that deliveries was a real problem and a surprise for him, and they couldn't move product back and forth to assess it. So
At the same time, the freight cost has gone up to like 5 times the norm
really,
for the art pieces. So that is
Well-
a major issue for the art industry at the moment.
and is it slower than it used to be, or?
Well, at the moment the borders are closed, and then as you may be aware that at the moment for art industry, art fairs are the
Right.
major places where the art pieces are bought by the collectors. So collectors constantly travel all over the world, and then going to the art fair, and that was a major source of income for the galleries. And normally the auction houses would have their auctions sort of adjunct to the art fairs so that they captures those audiences. But that no longer is possible under this lockdown, and people not being able to move across the border. So in a way, though, that we foresee that if there's going to be consolidation of the art fairs, and then again, I think the technology will play a role in changing, I think, that the course of the business for the art industry.
Mhm. Aren't there just far too many art fairs right now?
Oh, absolutely. So therefore, artists are so happy now. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I have the time to produce artwork. So, instead of like I was going to talk about the cycles, I think, it's been a frantic cycle for everyone, for the galleries, for the artists, for the, auction houses, everyone. So it would slow down, however, I think, what we are looking at is like, real plus virtual. And I think our industry finally is taking up the technology to say, look, online ain't that bad.
It's not that bad, huh? Okay.
It's not bad. Yeah, because
It's good.
Perrotin has sold a art piece worth $6 million online.
Online.
Yeah. So once people done it, then that sets the norm. Although that we see like that it's just the balancing. One is the online, the other one is real, but then there's going to be a quality selective. The online, as you said, 2 minute art fair, so it's going to be consolidated to the really quality ones.
Right. In the jewelry market, that's what's happening too. They sell, I wouldn't call it everyday jewelry, but far less expensive jewelry is being sold online, and the very high end gems and jewels are taking a pause right now until there's live auctions available. There's so much sold online now, even in the live auctions, by phone and by online. I remember attending the Elizabeth Taylor auctions at Christie's in New York. And so much of the bidding was out of the room, and the rooms were jam packed.
Absolutely, I know. It's just I think that that says something about what can be changed quite
Right.
easily without actually impacting market, market, how do I say, liveliness for the industry. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The next question is, what are some examples of crisis marketing that have helped brands? Laura, would you like to take this one?
Sure. I mean, I think this whole period, in some ways, has been a big long episode of crisis marketing for a lot of companies.
That's right.
And I think there's there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of ingenuity, there's a lot of inspiration, I think, that people have found in this window, and it's turned into really positive stories for companies and brands. So it's been kind of interesting to watch. And there's been, I think, a doubling down on community and inspiring clients and customers and patrons to interact with brands in different ways. I think we're seeing that all over the place in the art world right now in ways that's really strengthening brands. You're seeing everyone turning online and spending more time online and finding ways to connect in really meaningful ways. If you look at the Getty Museum inspiring their audiences to recreate masterworks at home with ordinary objects, and there's these things that are very playful and very joyful, and that model has been, lots of organizations have sort of followed suit there, and I think things like that are really interesting. I think the other thing that we're seeing is like a word that's very often overused, which is authenticity. But I think because of the restrictions and everyone being at home and restrictions tied to technology and production, people have sort of been forced into this place of real authenticity. And we're seeing that with content, being produced at home and this type of thing where people are sort of live and unstaged and unedited. And I think it's really driving a lot of honesty between brands and their customers. And I think that ultimately is a really good thing as well.
Jim, one of your clients is the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry. And they just adapted quite well to having to cancel their trade show by using an online show.
Yeah. I think, I think we're going through a particularly difficult time now, and we have been for the last 10 weeks. And when the COVID crisis started, I don't think there was no playbook for it. So it really was a moment where people had to be very creative, very resourceful, very quick acting. And I was incredibly impressed with what the FHH, the Fondation Haute Horlogerie, did. I mean, literally in a matter of 6 weeks, they were able to create a digital version of what was known as SIHH, which is now called Watches and Wonders, or will be Watches and Wonders Geneva next year. But I think it was, it's unique because they're a foundation, an educational foundation, unlike maybe other trade shows which are run by for-profit companies. The FHH isn't a foundation, and it was created by the Swiss watch brands for the Swiss watch brands. So they were able to do this because they have such a close connection with the brands, and were able to build immediate consensus and get everybody to commit to participating. And for those that had the ability to showcase new products, they were able to create a platform to bring that to the public. But it was just sort of a remarkable example of how an industry is able to come together in the time of a crisis, support each other, reinvent itself in a way, and connect with the consumer. It also sort of supercharged the transformation of what was a traditional trade show, for lack of a better term, really focused on retailers and journalists, and maybe a few high-end collectors that had the privilege of getting in, to opening it up to consumers, to watch enthusiasts all over the world. So It was a really wonderful, inclusive opportunity at a time, I think, when the industry and really the world, was looking for something positive and looking for a way to be engaged and looking for, some hope and some direction in the industry. So yeah, it was a very exciting thing to be a part of. And I think, I know I was just speaking with some journalists from Women's Wear the other day that I think it is a model that other industries are now looking at, most particularly fashion, given that we are going to be in somewhat of a crisis mode for the near future. So shows are not possible, or at least not the way that fashion shows have been done in the past. So do we look to shift to a digital model, or is it a digital model mixed with some type of a scaled down physical event? I think it's really a time when businesses are being forced to rethink the way they engage with their consumer, rethink the way that they communicate and present new products to the world, and create and maintain communication. It's a very challenging but very exciting time.
I do think it's interesting also, just what you were saying, that these online sort of fairs and trade shows are giving access to companies and artisans and designers that maybe didn't have access to physical fairs in the past, which is, just opening up the industry in kind of an interesting way. We work with the IFPDA, and the Fine Art Print Fair this year went virtual. And it became a platform that opened up to all of their members, whereas it was cost prohibitive and size prohibitive in the past for everyone to participate. And they saw great traction in terms of sales, but in terms of new participants, which I think is really interesting, and it just it's opening up different opportunity for people.
Yeah, and they have these online platforms now. They're year round, and they complement the live shows when they come back to being live shows. So I don't think it's not going to be a substitute for the live show, but it's certainly going to be a way to promote the industry throughout the year and bring more people in.
I think the consumer is becoming much more comfortable too. So you have a whole new group of consumers that were never comfortable online. They were kind of technophobes that are suddenly doing Zoom calls, and they're participating in a way because they've been forced to. And it's creating a whole new consumer, a whole new online consumer base. So we're seeing really heightened levels of engagement with consumers we never saw before. But because they're at home, they're suddenly exploring the web, something they would never even take the time to do. And now they're sort of forced to, and they're really liking it. So I think it's a very interesting time.
How robust is your e-commerce business, Stephen?
Our e-commerce business is up over 100% this year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's really been unbelievable, the amount of engagement. Sessions are up, purchases are up. We're seeing a little bit lower price point, but we're really seeing very strong again, engagement. People who I don't think ever shopped online. And I think people are doing it with groceries. They're doing it with, you can see it with what's happening. The U.S. has been on such a lockdown, especially the Northeast corridor here, that, if you're not shopping online, you're basically not consuming right now. Right. So it's been good for that part of our business. Of course, all the stores are shut down, which is the majority of our business. But we're seeing a shift here. I think it'll be some of it will be permanent.
To go back a few weeks ago, you were talking about, and others were talking about, even though they were getting orders, fulfillment was an issue because you couldn't bring the people in, to ship the product. Is that still a problem, or?
We have a skeleton crew here who's kind of managing that for us. So we've been able to keep up with it. But again, it's such a lower level than we're used to, when we're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
I agree with Stephen. Our business is up 40% on e-commerce, and our e-commerce business is really very, very low numbers because we drive traffic to our townhouse. and to have that personal engagement. Anthony's been to our townhouse. It's an experiential luxury experience. So we see, a big uptick in our numbers as well.
Now, how is it direct e-commerce, or do they have to like call in and?
No, we have e-commerce. We have e-commerce as well. Yeah, we have a skeleton team as well in London that have come in and been able to facilitate the.
I didn't know you had e-commerce.
Yeah.
How long have you had?
I think there's, and also for jewelry companies, I think one thing, with the digital platform, to be comfortable with social media, because, I think we all are experiencing those sales through WhatsApp, coming through chat. And I think this is the future in the authentic voice.
We work hard on e-commerce actually, because we have during the confinement, we think about the way to work with our customer who are mainly American. And now slowly Instagram take a big place in our contact with the consumer. And we, even last year, maybe we did some 1 or 2 sales over than 30,000. But now it looks more easy to sell expensive pieces. What is expensive for me? Maybe it's not for other, but normally it was so difficult to sell over than 20,000. Now it's more easy.
Good. Narcisa, you have opinions on this? You want to do some e-commerce. You haven't done it yet, but you're on the verge.
Yes, we are about to start it actually. I mean, we obviously use all channels to communicate. We are using Instagram, WeChat, of course, WhatsApp, but only with the clients that were already existing clients. Now we're expanding. We are going online as well. We are going to open up our online stores and throughout the platforms as well, carrying our ready-to-wear collections. I'm not a very big consumer myself online. I'm probably the only person not having an Amazon account. I'm not buying stuff online. Simple, just like that. But definitely it's the best way to keep in touch with customers. And what I realized that, people want a combination of both. They will not buy online unless they know you from offline, especially in high-end jewelry. They need to come and touch and feel your pieces. So being present online is more of a more of a PR marketing exercise rather than a sales channel.
Okay. Let's see. The next question is, what are some ways of building affinity with customers through branding and marketing? Stephen, we spoke about this a few weeks ago. You changed your messaging during the COVID.
Well, I think that, our messaging has always been very, upbeat, occasion driven. It's been social. It's about getting out. It's about dressing up. And I think that right now that that's not what people are thinking about. It's nice to have a little diversion, and certainly to get them out of it. We didn't go in a downbeat way, but if our social media was about Memorial Day weekend and about going to the picnic or the party, people weren't doing that. And so we had to kind of make adjustments that way so that we weren't tone deaf as to what was going on. And, but again, we've had more engagement than ever. So people are definitely looking for a little diversion. Right now in the US, what's going on, we have that added, all the excitement with all the protests that are going on right now. You got to be considering what people are really thinking about. So the jewelry business is an upbeat, occasion-driven business, and I think that doesn't go away. But I think that the messaging has to be adjusted a little bit.
Jim, how are you advising your customers? Your clients.
Well, just sort of echo Stephen's point. This is a unique time, whether you're talking about COVID or whether you're talking about the current situation with the protests. maybe a good example would be the work that we're doing with Lightbox, the lab-grown diamond brand from De Beers. From the get-go, the brand was really positioned to be about inclusivity. And so we felt like this was the perfect opportunity to echo that through strengthening connections with the local community. And we started in New York just after the COVID pandemic happened, working with local restaurants, small restaurants who have been hardest hit during this time, to provide support, financial support to them, to create meals that could then be delivered to healthcare workers and first responders. And it was really, really a community philanthropic initiative. There was no product tied to it. There was no commercial message. Just New York has been a city that Lightbox is connected to through the pop-ups that we did, our partnership with Bloomingdale's. So the company felt it was really important to find ways to give back. So that was a program we put together for them here, and then we're pushing it out across the country. It's just, to me, I think there's opportunities in times like this to, to not focus necessarily on sales, but on building your brand, connecting to the community, helping guide a narrative. All of the work that we did there was great for the brand to be storytelling on their social media, on their blog, and really try to, inspire the community, inspire their consumers. But again, going back to what the brand has always been about from day one, which is this idea of inclusivity. So I would encourage brands to think about ways that they can connect better with their consumers and with the community at this time. And it doesn't always have to tie back to sales.
Right, Laura, are you doing about the same thing, or?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think that's a really good point about, connecting to your brand's values and your brand heritage. There's a lot of opportunity, in these past 12 weeks where companies are kind of coming in and, there's, on one hand, I think there's things that can really ring false when you're kind of putting out things that feel like platitudes or feel like they're not rooted in who the brand is or what the brand has been doing. And I think it's causing a lot of brands to look inwards at things like their hiring practices or their sourcing practices or where the material is coming from, before they're coming out and making a statement in solidarity or in support of, any individual group. And so I do think that, it's a good opportunity for brands to be looking inward and kind of drawing from their heritage and finding that piece of their value or that piece of their story that really resonates with what's going on right now.
Okay. Teri,
Yes.
your clients are a little bit different, I think.
Mhm.
Is there a strategy specific to the art world that
In terms of branding and marketing, building affinity, this question.
Yes.
Well,
well, as a gallery, I think you would have to do that.
yeah, so as a gallery, we do. Having said that, I think, I suppose, as everyone said, and I think there's a commonality with the, jewelry industry, is that we needed to tailor the messages to the audience, taking into consideration the circumstance of today under the pandemic. Because what's relevant for them is very critical, particularly for the contemporary art. So for the artist's work too, one thing I would like to mention is that they would always reflect the cutting edge of the of what's going on socially, politically, and so forth. And that's what really and then also with that to have the context to the history. That's what the contemporary art is all about. Therefore, I think the art works themselves. I mean, good example is Takashi Murakami. I mean, he's I think in terms of the fact that cartoon is something that he has based, and then the fact that he said he created this principle that high art or low art, particularly in Japan, there is no different. It's super flat. But then, like, with that, the sort of the platform for him, for every the era, he has changed the approach to be very relevant. And I think the recent the trend, and interesting enough that we haven't done this enough with the jewelry industry, is like the cross the art, the collaborations, fashion, fine art, the music, performance, and so forth, because I think all of those sectors are really reflecting what is what people are thinking, what are the needs of the people, and so forth. So art, the work itself, again, under this, this pandemic lockdown, the nationalism emergence and the protest, I think it's going to be reflected. But at the same time, from the gallery, or like the marketing the point of view, that the understanding all that we have to be the very relevant to the people when it comes to the messaging. And I think again, people are not looking for fear, but people are looking for, I think there's something to make them to believe in the world again.
Yeah.
That's why, yeah, like Takashi's, the flowers are selling quite well.
Well, that's it's great to see everybody adjusting to this weird situation.
And also we call our customers sometimes. We try to stay in touch with them. We send email, and we send some newsletter to advise them what we do, and to explain them the new collection and what happened in the shop. And also we have a PR agency in New York, Mega, who take care of us, and is our contact in America with the retailers. And in Paris, we have a strong team with 2 people, Narcisa and Anna, working hard for Instagram. And we call them personally, and we send, not a newsletter for everybody. We try to join them one by one, because they are unique, and they have to know, we have to respect that.
Lydia, how many regular clients do you have?
How many?
Yeah,
How
about.
many? I don't know.
But it's small enough that you can really do a personal touch with them, correct?
Maybe I want 100,
Yeah.
not more.
Right.
But we 100 we have to join personally, but of course much more, because it's a long way for me. I am in the business for 30 years, so that's normal. And when we send newsletter, I think we send press and clients 5,000 newsletter, I think.
Isabella, we haven't heard from you for a while.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was listening to you.
Okay.
And I totally agree about what Stephen said before, to the approach. Maybe Stephen or Lara, I'm sorry, I don't remember what they said about the approach for the customers during the pandemic, during the COVID. And this is what we did. As I said before, Italy has been the second country after China be hit by the COVID. So, and for us, the lockdown has been quite long, because we have been locked down for 1.5 months. So it's quite a long time. And we try to keep our, to keep the contact with the clients by sending like coloring books for their kids with the shapes of our jewels, or a newsletter about positive things in the world, about newness, about interesting thing about production. So the approach wasn't the business approach, wasn't the approach to sell something, but it was to bring positive vibes and positive things to the people who were living a very difficult moment. So I totally agree. And about the e-commerce before, I want to say that we have an e-commerce. Vhernier has an e-commerce, and the website is the same. So as everybody do. So it's like a way to sell something, but definitely for us, it's not the best way because, you know, Vhernier, you have to wear it, you have to try it on. Wearability is very important, as Lydia said before. Pieces has to be very comfortable. You don't realize if a piece is comfortable if you don't wear it, if you don't try it on. You know what I mean? So it's quite impossible to understand a piece, whatever piece that doesn't matter the brand, but you have to see it. It doesn't matter if it's very famous, doesn't matter if you see it around for many years. I really believe that it's very important for the people talking about retail part. It's very important for the people to come in the boutique and to visit and to feel the brand and to touch the materials, to have the experience about the storytelling, which is fundamental for us to sell a piece.
Great. Now the final question, I think I'll stick with you, Isabella, to give you a chance to join the conversation here. How has the modern landscape changed, and how has it affected the creative industries in regard to the creative process, manufacturing, marketing, and technology? It's kind of a broad area. Italy is not only known for traditional jewelry crafts and art, but also being on the forefront of contemporary design and manufacturing. And I think your company does both. Certainly does the contemporary end of it. So I think you have
we take inspiration from contemporary art, from sculpture, from art in general. So absolutely. In terms of manufacturing, creative process, I mean, industry, we believe, and talking about Vhernier, of course, but in general also, we are facing a post-pandemic situation. So we believe that it's a wise choice. The wise choice might be to slowing down the manufacturing part and focusing on just fewer lines. So fewer lines, but very relevant. A real newness, to propose something real new, new materials, new experiments. In a way that we increase the value offered to the customers, but not in terms of price, not only in terms of price, but also in terms of the amount of the innovation, you know, giving something to them that is really different. Okay. I don't know if it's clear my point.
You did some groundbreaking work with titanium. Are you working with other materials, other metals?
Yeah, we work with titanium a lot, and we work with aluminum, and we have new material that's coming in the end of June for the new collection. But I can't say anything. I have to sip my mouth. Sorry. But yes, new materials, new shapes, newness. We think it's not the secret, but it's the important. What we have to bring to the world, you know, what we have to offer to the customers instead of tons of new lines, tons of new production. You know, I think we have to slow down on that part and to be concentrated more on something more special, you know.
Okay. Yes. Narcisa. What are you looking at in the new landscape?
It's actually quite interesting. One thing I realized in this past 3 months, honestly, we didn't really have a lockdown in Hong Kong. Everything is being almost normal, business as usual and all that. Whenever I speak to anybody, whether from Europe or whether States or Australia or any other country in Asia, I realize that everybody's so afraid and they have no clue what they want to do next. They're all shooting in the air everywhere and they think this will work, that will work. But literally, nobody knows what's going to happen. And we all assume that consumers are going to change overnight. Not going to happen. That's not happening either. I already see now. Yes, after 1 month we reopened, people go shopping. We just had an event like 2 nights ago where I had better turnout than we ever had in our private previews. And we assume that people look for totally different things. Guess what? No, not at all. They went for the same thing that they wanted before, probably even bigger and bold and better. Now they want more quality, they want better value. And again, they are not believing the lip service anymore with branding and all that. You want to get people, you got to be honest, you want to talk to them. And you really want to deliver what you're saying that you're delivering. And we got to remember at all times that the consumer, the customer, collector, it's all about them. It's not about what we try to sell to them. It's not about the piece that we're talking about. It's about them, how they resonate with what we do. This is the only shift I'm seeing right now. We got to put consumers at the center of our attention. It's not about so much anymore me as a brand, who I am, what's my DNA. At the end of the day, without that consumer, we are nothing. We design for them. Everything we make, it's somehow to make someone happy. And again, we keep forgetting, we make jewelry because people love jewelry. And we forget that we need to love what we make, first of all. So this industry needs to get back, I think, to what it used to be.
Okay. Colleen, what do you see from your little world?
My lens.
And yes,
Yeah, I think I'm just going to step back for a moment, just in terms of from a business perspective. I think cash reserve is critical because in case there's a second wave of this pandemic. I think going back to Narcisa, I think it is about, it's about creating a safe environment that for your clients and for your employees, really, really critical on that front. I think that, I think if you have something unique and special, you will survive. I think there's what we go back to is, we've done the craftsmanship and quality story, which we've been weaving in our stories. Jessica is the disruptor in the space of diamonds. She's started her business on Instagram. She has an authentic voice and it resonates with the community. And I think over communicating to the community has been really critical. These past few months, we've done, great contests, design contests, et cetera, which people have responded to. And I think that's important. I think digital platform, critical technology. I think technology, what I'm seeing is, movement on technology, especially to facilitate the selling process. You're hearing brands, they're talking about the contactless, click and collect, those are bigger brands. But I think one thing that comes back to me is this inclusiveness, and it goes back to what everybody's saying. I think among brand leaders, marketeers, everybody's sharing information to really get through this and to survive. But I think that sustainability is critical to us, the personal experience and making it very personalized, I think is to happen. And whose dog is that? Oh,
it's not Jesus. To get into the conversation. Stephen, on the manufacturing end, and are there new processes, new techniques, new
I want to just talking about the consumer. We're in a very unique business, right? It's not a customer has a very hard time coming in and shopping our product on their own. Certainly the technology piece works, but our business is hand to hand with people. We're touching our customers. We're putting a necklace on them. We're holding their hand while they're wearing a ring and looking at it. So it's so personal in a way. And this is what's really broken down, I think, from this. People are so sensitive about getting close. I mean, they're talking about 6 feet. And if you think about like a jewelry purchase or catering to a jewelry customer, you're typically standing 2 feet away from them. You are handing things back and forth. It's a very sensual business. And I think that compensating for that is going to be one of the real challenges we have. I think that that's what people like about jewelry. I mean, people wear it on their skin. There isn't a more personal art form, I think, than what we're doing. And I think that's going to be one of the big challenges. I think that, again, social interaction on the digital platforms has always been good. And I think that it's a way to introduce people. But in the end, it's hand to hand what we're doing. On the supply side, again, we're running into some difficulties. We're lucky we have a team on the ground in Asia, and they're able to kind of work through a lot of the processes for us. So But it's going to be an interesting, it's like, again, there's no switch that's going to happen where suddenly it's going to come back and people are going to be confident and comfortable again in that really intimate setting. And even people that you know very well and you've been customers for years, they're suddenly tentative to interact in that same, again, physical way. Not necessarily on the phone, or they're certainly not distant that way, but there's a physical distancing that I think we're going to struggle with for a while.
I've been to some high jewelry workshops, and I've seen 3D printers in there that they use to create molds. Does anyone want to talk about any of the future technologies for jewelry making that may be used at least on a partial basis? Okay.
I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Do
What
you
you
use, is everything you make is handmade, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We cannot cast most of the time. It
Right.
happened maybe 10% are possible to cast and to, but everything is sculpted by hand and
Right.
yeah. So, and I want to tell you something about titanium. I was very disappointed. Maybe I have not right make workshop, but the color, when you put color on, it's not stable at all, and it's risky to put in the market pieces where the color come off. I don't know for the other one the experience, but for me, I love titanium, but the real color is gray, and when you put blue on, it's difficult. You have to use like a kind of enamel, otherwise it doesn't stay. And
That's the first time I've heard that, Lydia.
you,
Yeah,
that's
it's the first time I've heard that.
you.
I know there are
Yes,
some
very true.
workshop. I've never heard that before. I never heard anyone who works with titanium.
I remember we didn't have any problems.
Somebody
We worked a
else
lot with
has
titanium.
I'm sorry.
someone else has a problem too, or it's
No
only
one,
me?
no one else.
No,
No
one.
we had some problems about black titaniums. We launched black titaniums 6 months ago, but then we found out how to by sinterization. Is that correct in English? Sinterization? Yeah.
Anodized is how it's done, I think.
Anodization. Anodization.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No. It's sinterization. It's different. It's a different process, and it's for black matte titanium. And even if you scratch the titanium, you don't see any gray scratches under the black coating because it becomes all dark.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
natural titanium,
yes.
gray natural titanium, and black titanium. We tried for
But there is blue, for example, blue or pink. Is it the same?
We never did pink because it's not a color, very Vhernier color, but we
And
did
blue?
but blue metal. No, even matte. So both.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Because we try to use a new technology, but it's difficult because we are pioneers, in this.
Maybe you need to find a different workshop for titanium. It's
Yeah.
a specialized field. I know in Switzerland there's some
It
workshops.
is a workshop specialized in this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, anyway. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Jim and Laura, the marketing aspect of the new business landscape. I know we did talk about it. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to add to it, Jim or Laura?
I mean, I would just say I feel like whether we like it or not, I think brands are going to be pushed to be omnichannel. I think you have to be available and accessible to your consumer. if you're not, they'll shop somewhere else. I just feel like, especially in light of what everybody's experienced during this pandemic, and being home and being on their phones and looking at social media and shopping online, even if you're selling high jewelry, I feel like you have to be able to give your consumer, wherever she or he is around the world, access into your brand. You know, maybe they're not actually buying that piece online, but they need to be able to connect with your brand, and they need to be able to communicate with you. So I think from a marketing perspective, we're working with all of our clients to make sure that what they're doing digitally, you know, is up to par with what they do creatively with their work, what they do in their boutiques and an in-store experience. It should be a cohesive and integrated message across all channels. So I think digital is going to be an increasingly bigger part of what all of us are doing in the future. But it doesn't take the place, I would say, of that physical experience. I still also believe that to really, truly, particularly when it comes to jewelry, to really understand a luxury product, you have to experience it in person. But we just, actually, I should just point out, we just did a really interesting program with our Watches of Switzerland client and Grand Seiko, the luxury end of Seiko timepieces, where they created a filter, an augmented reality filter for Instagram, where you could watch on at home, and it was surprisingly realistic. And this was this is the early stages of this technology, and I think you're going to see, as technology advances and brands get more experimental, the ability to digitally bring product and brands to life for the people that can't necessarily go into the store or don't want to go into the store.
Laura, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that, I mean, that summed it up nicely. I think that's true. I think we're seeing that with individual clients, and we also work with First Dibs. They've had record number of new dealers join the platform over the past month. They had their highest sales volume ever, a week or two ago. So I think we are seeing some of those dealers and makers, both contemporary and antiques, who have been hesitating on the e-commerce front. This has been sort of that tipping point to push them over the edge, and I do think that that's just going to continue.
Okay, great. Teri, you want to end this? You want to close this out?
I completely agree with Jim and what Laura have just said. I mean, first of all, as Jim said, that going digital. I mean, definitely, art world is probably the dinosaur that finally took up this digital. We were forced to. Again, I think it's great, but then, as Jim said, that it's not going to replace the real experience. I mean, it's a category, so it's just a combination of things. And then I think the second is that as we just talked about, art fairs will be consolidated, meaning that I think instead of the rapid cycle of people's movement, that is going to be replaced by more people taking more time and then really looking for the quality, and choosing the artworks based on the digital strategy of the artists and of the galleries and all the museums, and also a place. Again, I would cite quality. And then again, I think the social distancing is not going to go away. So, more uptake of the technologies, combined with, the AI or like a virtual reality. I think more and more things of that we will see in the near future.
Okay. Well, great. I don't know if we have questions from the audience because I don't have that access for some reason. So I think we should end it here. It's been an hour and a half. It's enough time for all of us. We will have to get back to work. Thank you so much for coming here, taking the time to do this. And thank you all for listening. And there will be a replay on Facebook and on other social media platforms through Narcisa and myself. Narcisa, you want to close us out, or?
No.
And thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Anthony.
Thank you.
See everyone.
Opportunity to invite us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My
Bye.
pleasure. It was my pleasure.
Bye,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Bye.
Bye.